Hey everyone, it's Summer here with AstariaSen, and I am doing a book review on this book right here, Fairies. It is actually connecting with the fairies made easy. And it is by Flavia Kate Peters. Got the book right here. Look at that. Yeah. It's a pretty decent sized book. It's got a lot in it. On the back, she talks about where to find fairies, communication spells, meditations, invocations, exercises, different types of fairies, including gnomes, rituals, ceremonies, moon bathing, fairy circling, stuff like that. I was really interested in this because of the meditations and because of like the moon stuff, the moon related stuff, and what was the other one that really drew me in? The types. Yeah, the different types. I wanted to I know about the different types, but I always like to learn more. So even though I may know a lot about certain types of fairies, or the fae even, I always am seeking to learn more. I'm always looking for more information, and I'm always looking at the lore, and I'm always seeking out that new idea or that new take on some old mythology or whatever. So anyways, this is interesting. I highlighted some things. I think the book is really good. I went through it pretty fast. The chapters are short and really easy to read, really easy to get through. The meditations are also easy. Some of them are pages long, so it feels like something that I would have to, because I'm not super good at written meditation. It's something that I would probably have to speak into my phone and then record back or play back to myself so that I could actually do the meditations. And then some of them are really, really short and easy to work with. So let's see, what did I have highlighted in here? She talks about fairy or fairy, like the different spellings. Well, let's see, this way. There we go. It talks about the different spellings, and this is what I highlighted because I wanted to read it to you. Is fairies are beings made up of high vibrating energy of light, which I found super interesting because I've heard about fae being a higher vibration too. And then she goes on to say they resonate at a higher frequency than we do, which is why it is difficult for us to see them. However, they can appear to us by slowing down their vibrations. So I think that is really, really interesting to learn. And it's not something that I read in a lot of fairy books, at least at this point in my fairy journey, in my fae journey. I haven't read a lot about the, like how they are seen by people. I do like that they show themselves in specific forms that they think you will be able to understand. So I do believe that. She doesn't talk about that in this book, but she does talk about the vibrations, which I think is highly interesting. And she has more on it in here, but I didn't want to give, it's her book, and if you want it, you should read it. Then she goes into some fairy history, which I also liked, and she talks about it was also believed that elves spread diseases, and if someone was ill, they were said to be fairy taken. Isn't that interesting? And how fun, like in my brain, because I'm an author, so in my brain I immediately went to story, like how can I create something that was fairy taken, you know what I mean? And lots of people talk about like iron and why it is important, that, or why the fae don't like it and stuff like that, and here she talks about that too. She talks about why, and it's about how iron kind of counteracts fae magic. So I thought that was interesting. Then she has, she talks about all the different kinds of fae, like fairies, gnomes, elves, dwarves, leprechauns, goblins, fauns, flower fairies, mermaids, fire spirits, pixies, and a ton more, and the countries. She goes into a lot about elements as well. Let me see, another part in here. Like, this book is really full of a lot of different kinds of information that I found very appealing, and I find her knowledgeable in these aspects. It wasn't so much that it went into fairy folklore, like in the Elfland one that I did the review on, which I will put a thing up here for it. In that review, I talked about how it was a lot more folklore and a lot more historically based, and this isn't. This is more about her perceptions, her experiences, and also what is out there, like you could find in internet sources or something like that. I think she has her sources in the back too. All right, she talks about the guardian nature spirits. The guardians of element of earth are the gnomes, and she has them like all listed out here. I highlighted them because I'm going to go through them. on my own a little bit deeper, because this isn't like a super deep book. It's kind of like, it feels like overview type stuff. Like it doesn't go like super, super deep, but it also has a lot of information that I didn't know, which I think is why I like this book so much, is because it wasn't like that historical base of Elfland. So I got a little brain break, but it also gave me information that I didn't already know, which is what I like. And when I read books, that's what I like. I like to know what I didn't know before I read it. She talks about inviting the fairies in and how like attracts like. So, there are specific types of fairies, flower fairies, that she talks about in here. I don't want to go over every single thing that I highlighted, but there was a lot of good information. She talks about the sylphs and like the four winds, which is really interesting. I don't read a lot about sylphs or nymphs actually, but they are all type of fae too. So it's really interesting that she added them in here. This is something like, when I say she talks about her experiences in the book, she's got a piece right here that I'm going to read to you, because I did find it interesting, and I found it knowledgeable, and I found it engaging. And she doesn't do a lot of it, but she does talk about some of her own experiences with the fae. And she says, one afternoon, my attention was caught by a piece of paper that was flying around in the breeze. I was rather concerned, as I don't like trash to litter up the countryside, and so I went to retrieve it as it landed on the ground. As I reached to grab it, the wind picked it up and took it away from me. This game of chase continued for quite a while, and I was quite aware of the sylphs teasing me each time they snatched the paper away. And of course she has more on here, but I thought it was interesting that she had that experience, because I've had that experience and I didn't really attribute it to sylphs, but I could totally see it now, you know? So I thought that was engaging. She talks about a feather wish. She's got a feather wish exercise in here, which I want to try. Then she even talks about the Deja and the desert fairies, which are interesting. I thought they were more like genies, just genies. I didn't really consider them fae until I read this book. She talks about candle magic and how candles illuminate the path to the fae, and they ignite the inner spark within us, like the inner fire inside of us, which helps us connect with the fae too. So she's got a lot of good information about connecting with the fae in here, which again I like. She talks about dragons. She talks about the elements, like the undines are a water fae. The sylphs are like an air fae. The gnomes are an earth fae and stuff like that. So she also talks about how water has memory, which I found really interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but that was interesting. So yeah, this book has a ton of information that I find really interesting. The Celts have fairy cats. They have a thing about fairy cats that I wanted to tell you about. The Celts thought that cats had a strong sense of knowing, magical powers of divination, and their own fairy court. How interesting is that? Of course, she has more about it in here, but I didn't want to give it all away. So she does have summaries at the end of the chapters, which are fabulous, because if you want to just look real quick and see what that chapter is about, because you want to remind yourself or something like that, it'd be totally doable. So yes, I would recommend this book to anybody who is interested in fae. She also talks about more reading. Like if you want to dive deeper into reading, you can go into, she gives you more books that you can like look up and look into more, which I really like, because I find not enough books do that for me when I want to look up more information on the fae. And I'm like, well, where did you get your information? Or, you know, stuff like that, because I want to know so I can go look. I like looking. So anyways, this is a great book. I do like it. I do enjoy it. If you don't have it and you are into the fae, or you want to get to know the fae, it is an easy book to read. It is quality material, and it's fun to read as well. And it's got plenty for you to do. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and let me know if you are interested in this book, or if you've read this book, what you thought of it. I'd love to know that down in the comments. So thanks so much for listening to me, and I hope you have a very great day.